And welcome back to our next edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. I am Dan Siegel, joined again by my co-host, Mat Mlodzinski. Here we are, part 2 of our CBB rank from 100 to 1. So for those of you that haven't been following this site super closely, every year what we do is we count down from 100 days to the start of the regular college basketball season from 100 to 1. Each team is going to be a day. So we are doing teams 95 through 91 today, coinciding with the articles that we've been doing on our site each day. And I will be linking that in the description. Matt, are you ready for team number 95 in CBB rank?
Yeah, let's flash it up there. Hey, it goes quick, right? We already are inside the top 90 as well in our articles. And as always, again, make sure to read these on our website and make sure to subscribe as well, because we got a lot of great content in the off season. As I flash up Georgetown, the Georgetown Hoyas. I guess I'll start with this because it's my Big East team here. Obviously, I'm the Big East, a Big East writer for CBB Review. Interesting team to have in the top 100. I think the Hoyas deserve to be because Ed Cooley really brought in a really good transfer portal class, right? Malik Mack and Micah Peavy, obviously the two there. Mack coming over from Harvard, really great player in the Ivy League. And Micah Peavy, a guy who has a lot of experience at TCU, played some winning basketball with Jamie Dixon. But I think the star of this team is going to be Jaden Epps, because here's a guy who last year led Georgetown in a few categories. Now he gets to play alongside perhaps some more talented players. So to me, that 1-2-3 punch, at point guard and off the wing for Georgetown has the chance to keep the Hoyas a lot more competitive than they were in the Big East, really in the past handful of years.
Yeah, it's in a pretty bad stretch for Georgetown basketball. I mean, of course, with Patrick Ewing having an awful tenure pretty much the entire way. And then Ed Cooley comes in and you expect him to kind of right the ship, right? That's what he did at Providence. Of course, only winning 9 games last year. It's clear it was a long-term project. I think that number will go up more significantly than just that 2-win jump from 23 to 24. I think from 24 to 25, it'll be a more significant jump. I think losing Supreme Cook and Dontrez Styles is not the end of the world, right? And then you get 4 others. Like, I think they'll be fine with the transfers. They reloaded. Besides the guys you just mentioned, another guy, Drew Fielder, who is your make or break guy, a returning 6'10 forward. He's projected by you first off the bench. Not a perfect Ed Cooley fit the way you said you see it, but he shot well from 3 last year in very short volume. And Georgetown, I think one of their issues might be lack of shooting, right? As much as you have Epps and Mack in the backcourt who are great scorers, they're not like 40% three-point shooters. And Fielder as a stretch big could really kind of help that. If that, 40.7% last year on 54 attempts. If that's a true 40+%, like, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think that needs to be in the starting lineup. Like, realistically, is he a top 5 player? Can he close out games if Georgetown needs points? Sure, because he's a guy who, at least in a small sample size, was efficient from the field, put the ball in the bucket. He's going to be a sophomore. You would think he's going to be a little bit better than last year. But Georgetown brings in Thomas Sorber, right? A top 50 overall freshman recruit. He's going to be the big man in the middle. I don't see any other answer there. And then you get Jordan Burks, right? A guy who was recruited to play at Kentucky. A lot was said about last year's Kentucky freshman class, one of the best in all of history. And this is a Kentucky team that, of course, didn't live up to the expectations, but at least when you look at the high school recruiting, there was a lot of competition Burks was facing. I think he has a chance to really be that glue guy maybe for Georgetown this year. A lot to like about this Hoyas team. Do I think they're going to compete at the top of the Big East? No, but, top 5 seeds get buys in the Big East tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgetown at least is in that conversation when we get to late February to potentially getting a top 5 seed, because I think the talent is there. It all depends how Cooley is really able to get this program moving forward.
Yeah, Cooley's definitely someone who maximizes talent. I'll give you that. I'm not sure I see them as someone who's going to take a huge jump and be like in the tournament picture. Although I do think they definitely belong in our top 100. I think they will be finally like competent Georgetown, and it'll be a step for the near future to kind of take that next step into tournament contention. I don't know if they're there quite yet with this roster, but they're young, they're better, and I like the direction Georgetown is headed in. Number 94, moving on to Cal, a new team in the ACC. They completely revamped their lineup with transfers. We talked about Georgetown, who definitely had a little bit of a roster overhaul. Cal was a complete roster overhaul. Matt, you wrote they returned just 1% of their minutes, losing 3 double-digit scorers, albeit with Jalen Tyson, Firdaz Amack, and Jalen Cone. Do you see this as enough of a net positive for Cal to really get pushed in the right direction the way you believe in Georgetown?
Yeah, as our connection obviously was a little unstable there, I do think that Cal can be improved, but here's where I'm a little bit afraid of the Golden Bears, right? Because the last year they were in our CBB ranked top 100, and me, along with Ariel, predicted Cal, who had won like 4 games the year prior, to make the NCAA tournament. And yeah, Cal came nowhere close to that. And it was sort of the same reasoning. They brought in a lot of transfers. Felt like, all right, if these guys glue, there's a lot more talent on this Cal roster. So now I'm a little bit wary. Obviously, much different talent, right? These are totally different guys. It's a whole new roster. It's also a coach in Mark Madsen, who has his second season at Cal. So he has another year to put this together, really get his thing going. Maybe more players that he wants. He talked about, or at least I've talked about Rick Pitino doing that with St. John's before, right? Didn't get to have the exact transfer class he wanted. Now he has it this year. Same could be said for a guy like Mark Madsen. The question is this team talented enough in the ACC, right? Because Cal is no longer in the Pac-12. It's going to be better competition. It's going to be higher competition. They're going to be playing games on the East Coast. For me, are they ready for that challenge?
Honestly, to be quite frank with you, I'm not sure they are. I'm going to say no if I had to predict. Look, their non-conference schedule, if you look at it, I don't know if it's fully put together, but we have most of their games. It looks extremely light. So I think they'll definitely win more games. Like they'll finally get into the double-digit 14, 15 wins category. But like Ariel wrote, this was Ariel's article, by the way.
Yep.
Last year they had a star in Tyson, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year they have the depth that they didn't have last year, but they don't really have a star. And he wrote his MVP as Rightus Petritis, who's a Air Force transfer, but he put up a lot of points for a pretty bad Air Force team, by the way, projected first off the bench, just a guy Ariel really likes. I don't know. Like Stojakovic is a guy who was the 19th ranked high school recruit. He comes from Stanford. Like that's a guy that could potentially break out after a okay freshman season, but I think they're banking on a lot gelling together. You're also like you indicated, they're going to the East Coast half of their games. So it's not going to be exactly a comfortable experience for them. I'm not in on them. I think their roster does not look that impressive. I think they got a lot of mid-major guys, but mid-major guys who were not superstars or did not play for great teams. So I wouldn't be surprised to see just a slight jump from last year. And the only reason the jump happens is because they just have a little bit of an easier schedule. The best chance they really have is just the fact that Mark Madsen is a great coach and he knows how to get the best out of his guys.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. I don't think Georgetown to me has a better chance to be better in their conference. Neither team, though, that we've talked so far, would I predict to make the NCAA tournament.
Well, how about St. Joe's? We had St. Joe's at 93. St. Joe's is a really trendy team in the A10, a conference that I follow very closely. They return a star in Eric Reynolds, and I have emphasis in that word star because I think a lot more people in the basketball world need to know about him. And they have key side piece Xavier Brown back at him as well. Before I throw it to you, Matt, I just want to emphasize just how good Eric Reynolds is, just a stud on the wing. I think more people knew his name when he put on a show in back-to-back games last year against first Villanova and then Kentucky. They beat Villanova with his 24 points, and then he took Kentucky down to the wire with his 28 points. But he was doing that throughout the year, and he is going to be a main reason like St. Joe's is going to really have a big 2024 to 25 season, or at least they're projected to be like top 3 in the A10.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I feel like I might have been the only one that voted for St. Joe's, and a lot of it
Thank
was
you for that.
because, yeah, I saw them in the NIT last year. Of course, they played Seton Hall, and I really thought they were going to beat my Pirates, and a lot of that was because of Eric Reynolds. And yeah, when I saw him play, I was like, this team needs to be in CBB rank. He's coming back. He was a star last year in the A10. Not only that, but they bring back Xavier Brown, who also, along with Reynolds, I mean, those two were both, if you round up, and in Brown's case, you actually got to round down, pretty much 40% shooters from three, right? And they both average double digits in points, both around 3 assists a game. I mean, these guys shoot, score, get the ball moving. And not only that, but Derek Simpson comes in from Rutgers, right? So they have another guy there. So to me, they might be a little small, but I just don't know how any of those guys can come off the bench. A guy like Anthony Finkley, a guy like Sean Simmons, both of those I have coming off the bench. Those are both better, more prototypical small forwards, right? But I mean, no way Brown or Reynolds come off the bench. So to me, it's like it'd have to be Simpson, and I mean, he's just too good of a player too. I mean, he was a guy that averaged 8 points a game at Rutgers, right? So how could he come off the bench? So definitely a lot of talent there. Rasheer Fleming, Dan, is the key to success, in my opinion.
Mhm.
He didn't have to play center for St. Joe's last year, but he led the team in rebounding. This year, they bring in Justice Ajogbor from Harvard, who, in my opinion, should lead this team in rebounding because put up about 7 boards a game last year. He's a graduate senior. He should know his role, averaged 3 blocks a game. I mean, Fleming in his own right is a great power forward, gets after it, has long arms, but he's a 3-point shooter. So if Fleming can truly play his natural position at the 4 and really doesn't have to do too much work down low, sure, he's going to get it on the boards. It's just the type of player he is. The offense for St. Joe's, I'll predict it right now, will be the best in the Atlantic 10. I just think 1 through 5, and a couple of these guys coming back are sophomores. I got to think either Finkley or Simmons will improve enough in the scoring department. I think St. Joe's could be a heck of an offense to stop.
Absolutely, yeah. And those top 5 guys are just awesome. You mentioned the bench is a little bit inexperienced, a little bit like they don't have all this returning production to go off of. So if St. Joe's kind of underwhelms or at least is not reaching their ceiling, I think it's because of that. They have, outside of the 5 guys we listed, which maybe Simpson starts, maybe they go small, but outside of their top 5, all their returners averaged less than 2.5 points per game last year, or there's freshmen, a couple of them that weren't too highly ranked. So that could be the one issue with St. Joe's, but absolutely in on this team. As where do we have them in our A10?
I'm like 5th. I feel like they should at least be maybe 3rd, but I understand, again, with the bench being a little bit light, I can see that. But I think this team, a couple years ago, I predicted Penn State to be really, really good. We had them around like 90 or 80, and I'm looking at them on paper, and I'm like, this is a tournament team. They went to the tournament. It was the year that Penn State was really, really good. Jalen Pickett led them to the tournament. I sort of feel the same way with this St. Joe's team. I just feel like 1 through 5, they're so good that they're going to find a way to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and just one, like just Xavier Reynolds. So
Yeah.
Eric Reynolds. I'm sorry, but yeah. Let's move on to number 92. They got Princeton. They're number 1 in our Ivy League ranking. So we talked about Yale last episode. Yale was 96. So Yale was the one who ultimately represented the Ivy League last year. They beat Auburn, so represented them well. Princeton represented the Ivy League 2 years ago. They represented them super well going to the Sweet 16. But last year, going 24-5, ultimately not making the tournament, but now returning key point guard Xavion Lee, who averaged 17.1 points, 5.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, just a little bit of everything, a huge bag, like extreme range. They're definitely in good hands here.
Yeah, I mean, this team starts and ends with Xavion Lee. I mean, that guy is just a bucket. He's shown it too. Like if you watch Ivy League basketball, if you watch mid-major basketball, you know who Xavion Lee is. But Caden Pierce isn't too far behind, right? Princeton will play small. They're not going to have a traditional center. But Caden Pierce will get after it on the boards. He's going to score his points along with Lee. To me, it's Who's this third guy going to be? Or really fourth guy? I mean, Blake Peters has put up some solid numbers. Devin Austin a couple years ago. Shout out, by the way. He's from my hometown, which is kind of cool. I'm from a pretty small hometown. Don't always see guys at this stage. But he went through a pretty tough knee injury, but his efficiency was like off the charts as a freshman. So if he can come back healthy, could he be kind of like an unsung guy that maybe could complete this team? Sort of the same issue with St. Joe's. I mean, Princeton has Dalen Davis, who I have as the sixth man. Definitely a better sixth man than anyone that St. Joe's had to offer. But after that, really just a couple freshmen. Another guy who comes back, Darius Gawaski, who averaged 2 points a game. I mean, I don't see like a deep team here for Princeton, but usually Princeton is a deep team. So that's where I'm willing to trust in Mitch Henderson's ability to develop his freshmen, to develop some of the other returners, and eventually have a 9 or 10-man roster here that's ready to win another Ivy League title.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not – I think they should be number one in the Ivy League. We talked about Yale last episode. They don't look, in my opinion, as intriguing based on their roster, especially with their losses to the portal. And you got Lee, you got Pierce. I think they'll be dangerous, like you said, if they get enough from their role players and also if they get enough from their defense. Because they were ranked 181 in defense last year. They're tremendous, like top 50 offense. They have a great system. Everybody could pass, distribute. They play make well. I think they're really a model mid-major offense. But can they get enough from their defense, kind of improve to near the top 100? That's really when you'll see the best Princeton team you'll see. Matt, I have a question for you before we move on. So I looked this up. There are 3 teams last year in all of Division I basketball that had a better assist to turnover ratio last season than Princeton. Do you think you could guess them? Because 2 of them, I'll say one of them is extremely surprising, although kind of makes sense stylistically. One of them is easy to get, and one of them kind of makes sense. So that's the hint I'll give you.
So assist to turnover ratio?
Yeah, Princeton was 4th. There were 3 teams, all high majors, that were better than Princeton.
All high majors. Are you allowed to give me the conferences? Because like my mind's just like racing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Number 1 was in the Big East. This one will make a lot of sense.
Okay, so it's got to be UConn, right?
It's UConn.
I feel like I've read that before too.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is from the ACC. Does not really make a ton of sense. That's my hint.
Interesting.
Not a team you would think was a good offense last year.
For some reason, I'm willing to say my first initial thought is Virginia.
It was Virginia, yeah.
Okay.
Stylistically, yes, they were just a horrendous offense. Then number 3 out of the Big Ten. Good offense, bad defense.
Good offense, bad defense. Interesting.
Yeah, that's my hint right there.
Huh. That's a tough one. Was it Nebraska?
It was Iowa, actually.
Okay.
But anyway, those are the only 3 teams, UConn, Virginia, and Iowa, who had a better assist-to-turnover ratio than Princeton last year. They returned a lot of the reason why they had such a good assist-to-turnover ratio, just a satisfying offense to watch for basketball purists. So tune into Princeton in the Ivy League, particularly when they're playing, the Yales of the world.
Let's move on to the last one, right?
Let's do it. San Francisco. So this was my article. I talked about Santa Clara, another team that we had in CBB rank out of the West Coast Conference last episode. And I think Santa Clara was a really intriguing team, but more of a wide range of outcomes, like high ceiling, low floor kind of team. San Francisco is the opposite. San Francisco, they have won 20 to 24 games each of the last 7 seasons, or each of the last 7 full seasons, I should say, because one of them they only played like half the games. But 20 to 24 games each of the last 7 seasons among 3 different coaches: Kyle Smith, Todd Golden, and now their current coach, Chris Gerlofson. And I think this roster makes me really think it's going to be 8 in a row. Like, I think there are safe bets to finish like 3rd to 5th in the West Coast Conference. Last year, they had Jonathan Mogbo. If you know one player on San Fran last year, that's probably the guy you know. He averaged 14 and 10 last year. But I think without Mogbo, they will absolutely survive. And here's why. If you really look into their offense, Mogbo was a stud on the inside, but it was not predicated off of just feeding him on the block, let him go to work. They were actually, like I wrote, 241st in post-up frequency. Got that stat from shotquality.com. And it was more about, we're going to force turnovers. They were extremely efficient in transition when they ran. They didn't run all the time, but they were great when they did. They got to the rim, and that is why Marcus Williams, who came close to leading the team in points, led the team in assists. I think he'll be a great operator of that offense, especially in both the half court and transition setting. I think Malik Thomas could also lead the team in scoring as a great guy that could kind of come off screen, shoot threes. So with those two guys, you got Williams, you got Malik Thomas, and I'll talk about the other guys on that roster, but I really think San Francisco is going to be another just rock solid team out of the WCC and a deserving top 100 rank.
Yeah, look, if Mogbo returned, I think they could rival Gonzaga. And I think, honestly, you could make a good case for them being above St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's lost a lot of talent, also didn't really live up to expectations throughout last season. I remember St. Mary's was almost picked to win the West Coast Conference and then started off really bad. Had a tough non-conference schedule. But I look at the San Francisco team and say, with what St. Mary's lost to the transfer portal, no reason the Dons can't be number 2 in the West Coast Conference. I still think Gonzaga is the team to beat. But the WCC has improved. It's gotten better. I think people realize, okay, we got to recruit well if we want to compete with Gonzaga. We can't just recruit like any old mid-major. And guys want to come to this conference. San Francisco has built a winning program. I think, Dan, I think you're right with this. I mean, I look at this roster up and down. Jason Rivera-Torres off the bench, a guy who had power conference experience with Vanderbilt. I mean, why wouldn't you like a mid-major team that can bring someone like that off the bench? To me, the Dons, they're a winning team.
And a lot of these teams we talked about today have great offenses. Will they defend as well? I think defense could be a strength of San Francisco this year. They will be a great rim protecting team because the one thing Mogbo couldn't really bring was that elite presence on the defensive end. Well, now you have Ndubo Newberry, who's returns as a great rim protector. You have Carlton Lingard from UTSA, known rim protector. You also return a guy, Saba Gigi Berea. I think he played for Georgia Tech back in the day. He took a break from basketball this past season, but he's a very good rim protector. That's pretty much all he does. But with those three guys in the front court, I think it'll be like a no-fly zone in the interior for San Francisco basketball. And you talked about them against St. Mary's. St. Mary's, a team that is known for their rebounding, their interior presence, a team that lost a lot. I can't wait to see those two teams match up against each other and Santa Clara for that matter too, because that's going to be a real exciting second tier of the WCC in 2024 to 25. We talked about the Mountain West last year as that mid-major conference on the West Coast. That was awesome. That was just really fun to watch, rival power conferences. I think that, I'm not saying the WCC will be last year's Mountain West. With the Mountain West falling off a little bit, I think we could have the WCC as equivalent to next year's Mountain West as another mid-major conference on the West Coast to really keep an eye on for the big college basketball fans out there.
Definitely could be. There's a lot of strength in this conference, especially at the top.
And I didn't even mention they also have top 150 recruit Tyrone Riley coming in. So big things happening in the San Francisco program. That's all I got to say. That'll do it for today's edition of the CBB Review Studio podcast. Be sure to check out our articles. Like I said, each of them are in depth in the CBB Review website. We will link those in the episode description, so be sure to check that out. Be sure to subscribe to our channel here at CBB Review and like this video if you have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and take care.